So 2013 was a unique year for us. My wife was pregnant, we just purchased a home, and I had just started a new job. So needless to say, I didn't have a lot of time that deer season to deer hunt. So this particular year, I didn't have the entire week of Thanksgiving off, and Dad had shot a deer earlier in the year, so he was tagged out. So the plan was I was going to go in Tuesday night and hunt the rest of Thanksgiving week with Dad. And the weather was calling for snow Tuesday night going into Wednesday. And it was going to transition into rain Wednesday morning. And actually it transitioned a little earlier than what we planned and started raining pretty hard Wednesday morning. So we get up Wednesday morning and do our usual thing. And of course you're pretty pumped. You get some fresh snow. You want to go find a deer track. So we head out early that morning before light. So we head down one road that was really hot a year or two prior and nothing. So we ended up going all morning long and can't find a deer track. And at this point, it's I think around 9:30. You know, you're starting to burn daylight at this point. It was warming up a lot and it was pouring really hard. And the anxiety starts to build in you. You get a little anxious to get the heck out of the truck. And like I said, you feel like you're burning daylight. So we hit a bunch of our areas that we wanted to go check out and nothing good. They were dry. So we actually head back to the very first road we drove down that morning. And we're coming down that road, and there's a decent buck track crossing the road. And so we know it's fresh. We were already there that morning, and it wasn't there. Probably, an hour or two old at best. So I look at Dad, and again, it's pouring out. And he's like, "You're seriously going to get out?" I'm like, "Yeah, it's the only game in town. What else are we going to do?" And I basically was like, if I can last an hour, I'll be doing good. I'll go as long as I can, and if I can't go anymore, I'll turn around and head out. And he's like, well, have at it. So the plan was he was going to drive up the road. There was a nice spot up the road where he was going to pull over a couple hundred yards up on this knoll. And he was going to pull over, put his rain suit on, and then follow me in, probably give me about a 30-minute head start or so. So anyway, I get out of the truck, and this deer, like I said, it was a mediocre buck. It wasn't a huge buck, but it was the only game in town. And he kind of was high-stepping going across the road. It wasn't a big toe dragger by any means. And so he gets across the road, and basically there was a tree line, probably a couple hundred yards down off of the road. That buck had gone down into the woods, and basically had gone down to the tree line and started following the tree line, parallel on the road. So I just get down in the woods, and I hadn't really deer hunted a lot that fall. You kind of just, the first, 10 or 15 minutes, you're kind of just getting in the zone, kind of getting a feel for everything, just kind of trying to get in the groove of things. It was one of those days, it was a perfect day to shoot a deer. There was no wind. There was kind of a nice fog. You could still see really well, but it kind of had this haze, this little fog from the snow and then the warm air up above it. And it was pouring really hard. It was just like white noise in the background. So it was going to, one, keep the noise down, and two, going to keep your scent down really good. It was just a matter of how long I could last. And this deer was going to work with us and let me catch up to it. So anyway, I just get in on it. And like I said, he comes down along this tree line and starts parallel on the road. And I'm kind of just picking my way through, just taking my time, trying to get a feel for everything. We go a couple hundred yards. And he's in no particular hurry. He's staying right in a bunch of raspberry bushes. So we go probably 200 yards through these raspberry bushes. And then he makes a hard right, basically directly away from the road. I just kind of stop there, and I'm standing there for a few minutes, and I'm just kind of trying to look down in through the woods and not seeing anything. So I start to head down, and just a gradual decline down in towards this valley, and then it comes up the other side. I start to head down in towards where this deer had gone. I step up onto a blowdown, and I get a better perspective looking down into this valley, and I can see kind of down into these raspberry bushes a little bit better. And when I stand up on the log, there's a deer laying there. And it's probably 30 feet in front of me. And your first instinct is just pull up, and everything becomes automatic. You pull up and get ready to shoot. And so I pull the gun up, and just when I go to touch it off, I can just see the main beam of one antler coming out to the side. And he's facing away from me, bedded down, and he was looking over to his right. And I just see his head move back over, looking directly away from me. And all I can see is antlers looking away, and of course from behind a deer looks a lot bigger. So I see a nice rack, and I just remember telling myself, just take an extra second, take your time, make sure you make a good shot. Everything happened so quick. I probably took an extra second or two. Felt like an eternity. Felt like I was taking my grand old time. But I just remember bringing the crosshairs down, settling it on center mass, and then touching it off. And he shot up out of his bed so quick. He had no idea I was there. So he jumps up, shoots out of his bed, and I fire 2 or 3 more times at him as he's running. I don't think I hit him again. And he dropped 20, 30 yards off to my left. The funny thing is where I ended up shooting this buck out of his bed, my father was almost directly behind me up on the knoll, and he had just gotten out of the truck. The way my father explained it to me is he had just stepped out of the truck, was putting on his rain jacket, and was just putting his arm into the sleeve of his rain jacket, and I opened fire. And he said it sounded like World War II, just down below him. So I was so close to Dad that I hollered up to him, and it said, "Hey, big buck down." You know, that was one of those circumstances where it was so bad out. I don't think a lot of people would have got out of the truck and get on that track. And, you know, the Lord threw us a bone that day. I probably wouldn't have made it an hour that day, maybe 2 max. Wearing wool clothes, you know, they get heavy throughout the day, especially when it's pouring. They'll keep you warm. Eventually you'll get wet, but you'll stay warm. I think I probably was 30 minutes on that deer's track, and I only went a few hundred yards on him. And like I said, he crossed that road, paralleled the road for a little bit, and then went and bedded down. And the interesting thing is that deer messed up. Basically was looking away from his backtrack. When I came up onto him, he was looking away from me, had no idea I was there. Yeah, probably one of the best opportunities of shooting a deer up close that I've ever had. And so Dad comes down over the bank and didn't have far to drag it. That was one of the shortest drags. It's all uphill, but not very far, a couple hundred yards anyway. So yeah, sometimes you just never know. If I would have never gotten out of the truck, I would have never shot that deer. So it wasn't the biggest deer. You know, it was an 8-pointer. I had a decent rack on it. I believe it was like 175 pounds in that ballpark, maybe 180. So it wasn't the biggest deer on record, but again, you know, it's one of those deer that just taught you, you never know what's going to happen when you get out in the deer woods. It doesn't always happen that way. But like I said, it all kind of balances out. You have all those times that you chase deer around and you feel like you put in the work, you feel like you put in the effort, and you don't get any fruit from your labor. And then every now and then, it just kind of falls in your lap. So you savor those moments when it falls in your lap like it did that day. So yeah, that was an interesting hunt that I'll learn a lot from. So that's a perfect example of how you can't predict what's going to happen in a deer hunt. It was a terrible day, made the best of it. Jumped out of the truck, did what we could, and 30 minutes later, we caught up to the deer and shot it. So it was a short tracking job and an even shorter drag. So we'll take those when we can get them. So I hope you enjoyed it. Take care.